Solve Thirst first by visiting pennyappeal.org. This program is brought to you in association with Penny Appeal.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Let's Talk. I am Dr. Anita Raja, and I hope you're all doing really well. Like every week today, we thought it might be vital that we discuss a very, very important topic, which is the role of a father in upbringing their children. Now, when we look at parenting, lucky are those children who have both parents actively involved in their upbringing. Sometimes when we think of fathers, we imagine that their role is limited to that of a breadwinner. However, science and evidence suggests that different studies have proven that if a father is actively involved in raising a child emotionally, those children are much better off in their lives. When it comes to their intellectual capabilities, they're much better, much stronger, and also their cognitive functions are much better. However, it is very important to understand that anyone can father a child, but becoming the father of a child is the real deal. To discuss this and much more, we have invited on our show today Nur Choudhury, who is a parenting consultant and is quite passionate about talking about fathers and their roles and bringing up children. If you want to be part of our show, viewers, it's very easy. Our number is on your screen, 01924231083, and you can also WhatsApp us. So welcome to our show, Nur Choudhury. How are you?
Alhamdulillah, I'm good. Thank you for having me on the show.
No, I'm really pleased actually, because when we looked at your LinkedIn account, it seemed quite interesting that you were passionate about the role of a father in raising children, especially when it comes from someone like yourself, who is the father of 6 children, mashallah. You're in a much better position to explain the role that a father should have. First of all, I'd like to ask you the question on how you ended up becoming a parenting consultant.
Well, the journey is an interesting journey. And when I was asked this question a long time ago, it took a lot of digging to actually realize what triggered me into this kind of area of work. And it goes back to childhood. I did look at my own childhood, and when I was young, I made a conscious choice at that time, which was that I looked at the way my father was parenting, and I just felt that there was just more to it than what I saw as a traditional role of a breadwinner, a disciplinarian, and that's all I really saw in as a father. And as a child, I would hear about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and I think there's something amiss here, and I really want to be different. And that was something that underpinned the way I kind of lived my life. And once I got married and I had children, it was almost natural for me to be there, to be actively involved. I was very much, with my children in all of their journeys, doing the things that when I was speaking to a lot of my friends, they weren't doing in terms of playing that role as a father. And that journey continued in my personal life, but work-wise, I was doing something completely different until a massive turning point happened in my life, which was I was diagnosed with cancer in 2016. And after that diagnosis, that basically I left all of my work. I quit everything just to refocus on my health and just to get better. And at that time, it was a bit of, finding out actually my passion has always been in and around parenting. And so I pursued further studies, got my diploma in child psychology and then certificates in counseling and life coaching and further studies in and around all of this area, which then led me on the journey to become basically a parenting consultant. And one of the key things that I saw out there was there wasn't enough provision or any provisions really within the Muslim community that was targeting the fathers. Hence why then I set up Involve Fathers to be the first organization to focus on upskilling and empowering fathers to be more involved in nurturing with their children.
And you're absolutely right. Within the Muslim community, and also particularly in the South Asian community, you see that a father has a very, very different role if we compare ourselves to our Caucasian counterparts. So a father is, as you've mentioned, a breadwinner, and it's a very formal relationship that you have with your father. So your father will come back from work. There's not much of a conversation. They tell you what you're supposed to do, and it's pretty much a one-way conversation most of the time. I mean, I certainly was raised by a father who was pretty strict, and I wasn't given much of an option at all. And this is why I ended up doing medicine, because there was not much of a dialogue between me and my dad, and I was told what I was supposed to do. And I think he decided that medicine had to be my path way before I was born. I mean, he always thought, if I have a daughter, she's got to be a medic. So this is the sort of traditional way of raising your children, where you do guide them through, you love them, you provide for them. But when it comes to emotional support, I think we heavily rely on our mothers. Now that you have taken on this role of being a parenting consultant, have you been able to tap into the South Asian community, South Asian families? Do they actually take on your advice?
Yeah, the interesting thing is there's obviously issues of generation and culture. So what I'm seeing a lot more of is those fathers who have been born and raised here in the UK or within other Western countries. So the second or maybe third generation immigrants, they are much more focused and attuned to the needs of their children. And they've come to the realization very easily by themselves that it requires both the mother and father to be involved actively in order to raise good children. Because unfortunately, there are so many problems within society and the ills of society, and we're seeing daily the breakdown in morality, in behavior, in ethics, everything, and it's having a massive impact on children. So what I do have is a large number of fathers who are attuned, and they're the ones who are very much born and brought up here in the UK. Whereas those who may still be have immigrated here to the UK or from the older generations, they're stuck in their ways, and that's what I've tend to find. There are some who are willing and understanding, and a lot of the times that only happens after they start facing challenging problems with their teams, where they come to the realization, okay, hang on a minute, maybe what I've been doing hasn't been working, and I need to look at things a bit differently. But within the South Asian community, yes, there has been, but predominantly, as I said, those who are born and brought up here in the UK.
No, I totally agree with you, because I guess when you're born and brought up here in the UK, you have more understanding of how things should be done, and you have an open mind, whereas you may be a bit more set in your ways if you are from, say, back home, because you don't know any better or any different. Whereas over here, you've got such an exposure to different cultures, and I guess it's much easier to understand that while you have not been right, if something has definitely gone wrong, if your teenager is off track and you are unable to have that relationship with your children. Now, in terms of contacting you, how do people know of you, contact you, and what kind of families get in touch with you?
Well, you can contact me very easily. It's very much via the website, involvedfathers.com. So the website's there. I do have social media platforms on Instagram, on Facebook, and on YouTube. But however, you can just go, or you can just Google Involved Fathers. First name will pop up is my organization. And via the website, you'll be able to access an array of services online, and directly accessing services from there and getting in touch with me directly from there. So by all means, you can do that. In terms of the range of families that do get in touch, it's a broad spectrum. While the name is Involved Fathers, very much I do work with a lot of families, with mothers as well. And we do have services and provisions that cater for mothers and the family unit as a whole. So I have parents who are not just from the UK. I have clients and parents who are engaged with my services from America, from Australia, from Middle East, from Turkey, from parts of Africa, North Africa, and Europe as well. So there are a lot of families across the world who are engaging within the services, and that shows that there's a need for what's being provided out there. The families are different. There are different concerns that parents have. So naturally, you've got families who are concerned about the infants, the toddler years, the initial years, which can be very difficult as children go through many different developmental stages in those early ages, and they're very needy and reliant upon the parent. So there's a challenge within there. But then there's the gap after that. But the next kind of key area where parents have a lot of concerns about are the teenage years. And a lot of the times I'm having parents who are contacting me where unfortunately I'm going to say that maybe it's too late with some of the situations that the children are in, because there's been numerous years of damage that has been built up that has resulted in what they're seeing, the manifestation of the children, how they're manifesting their behavior and their attitude as a result of the years of kind of build up and issues that have arisen. And so that's why, while we can try our best to do intervention, I always say, if you're a parent, we want to look at prevention as opposed to intervention, because in the earlier years, if we can interject and prevent issues arising later in life, that is always the best solution.
And Nur, there's a lot of evidence to suggest what you've just said in terms of upbringing and the importance of, being present, being there for your children and sort of nipping the evil in the bud. Because I guess when it comes to behavioral changes, it doesn't manifest in teenage years. It does start showing up quite early, but it's just a matter of being able to pick those early red flags. Now, in terms of a present father versus an absent father in different families, what have you seen in practice?
Well, when we talk about the concept of absent fathers, traditionally, when you hear the word absent fathers, it would mean a father who is divorced, away from the family. He could be incarcerated in prison. He could be deceased. However, what we have more often today than before is fathers who are physically present, but they are absent in every other way with their families and with their children. They're not emotionally, they're not providing the emotional support. They're not providing the psychological support. They're not providing the spiritual support. They're just totally absent. They're immersed in their own world and completely negligent, effectively, of their children. And that's the impact we're seeing. And the direct correlation between the absent father and the absent father, the impact we're seeing is a rise in young boys who are involved within criminal activity, within gang-related culture, within drug abuse. The statistics are showing that the direct correlation from these behaviors goes back to an absent father. Similarly, we're seeing the Yep.
No, we want to continue talking to you. It is time for a break. We will get back to this topic because I want you to explain this really well. Viewers, our number is on your screen. Contact us, but it is time for a break. Stay with us.
Solve Thirst first by visiting pennyappeal.org. This program is brought to you in association with Penny Appeal.
Welcome back to Let's Talk. Before we went on to the break, we were talking about fathers and their invaluable role in raising children and how their absence can affect their children. Now, when it comes to becoming a father, anyone can father a child, but being a father is definitely a work of a lot of responsibility. It's a stature that is given to you by God, and you certainly need to fulfill it and be there for your children. If you're not there for your children, how does it affect your children? This and much more we were discussing with Nur Choudhury, who is a parenting consultant. And before we went on to the break, Nur, you were telling us what the impact is if there is a present father versus an absent father. And you explained it really well, that in today's time and age, it hardly ever is that the father is absent. They're physically present, but they are perhaps not emotionally there for their children, and how that can impact boys. So you were telling us how that could impact boys. You can continue telling us.
Yeah, and so as I was mentioning, there's a clear statistics that are showing the correlation between boys who are engaging in drug abuse and it's starting at a younger and younger age. We're talking about, not even teens, we're talking about tweens, young children who are engaged in drug abuse, who are getting involved within gangs, which includes knife and other crime and that culture that comes with it, alongside failure in academia and generally just bad behavior. All of these have been shown that the majority of the people who are engaging, children who are engaging in these kind of activities, when you look back at it, it's where the father is absent within the home, whether it's the physical absence or even, like I said, the emotional and the spiritual absence as well. And that's showing the direct link between that. And and you know that there are many mothers who are effectively raising their children, whether they are actually single mothers or having to act as single mothers because the father isn't present. And that's having a detrimental impact on the children, because the presence of a father, statistics have shown, especially some of the studies taken in America, where we're seeing many broken homes within the Afro-Caribbean community, that the American African community, that that where the father is present, there is a direct link with positive behavior within the boys. There is a direct link when the father is present with academic achievement. There's a direct link in staying away from criminal activity. And those things have shown, studies have shown of the thousands of families that they have surveyed and studied over years, that the link between a present father, an involved father and an absent father shows a trajectory where the children go. They're going to a better way of life, or they're going to criminal activity, drug abuse, and worse.
Mm-hmm. And Nur, when it comes to girls, so you've mentioned how boys can, get off track and how it can affect them. But when it comes to girls, they are very precious within our community, within our religion. They're given a lot of respect, a place of honor, and they are really those flowers that we are ready to water till we get them married off, and then they have their life with their husbands. Now, how does this affect, the absence of a father affect girls within the South Asian community, within the Muslim community? What have you seen?
Now, this is also a very important point. We are seeing, unfortunately, a rise in young girls who are now entering into promiscuous and abusive relationships. They're becoming much more. There's a higher number of girls who are falling foul of, meaning they are being sexually exploited. These are all the harms that are happening. They're going to physical abuse, emotional, and other sorts of abuse they're facing. And again, the studies are showing the direct correlation between this pattern of behavior and that of an absent father. So when the father is present, it's really important for a girl, because for a girl, when she is born, the first male figure in her life is her father. She bases her worldview of men based on how she sees her father. So if her father is abusive, if he is absent, if he is not around, then she bases the worldview of men, and this is how they are, and she becomes easier susceptible to fall into those kind of relationships. She also can feel very insecure. Girls, when they're growing up, they need that emotional support. They need that confidence. That comes from the love and the attention of that positive male figure in her life, which is her father, who will be somebody who will protect her, who will be somebody who won't abuse her. Then what happens is, when this isn't present, girls, unfortunately, can fall foul by getting any sort of attention from abusive people and basically falling for that. And then they fall into a trap. And it's very dangerous. And this is what we're seeing, a rise in girls who are unfortunately going into a lot of harm. And this is where you see the rise of self-harm, depression, suicide, issues around body image, and all of those things are propelled further by the absent father.
It's very unfortunate. I mean, it sounds like a bit of a nightmare, really, for parents as well as families, especially if they're in a predicament like this, where the children are turning towards abusive people in a vulnerable position. I mean, it certainly isn't something that someone would want to wish for themselves or anyone around them, really. I mean, if a family is in a position like this, where their children are off track, into drugs, in abusive relationships, does parenting counseling at that point help, or is it really too late at that time?
It really depends, because it's a case-by-case situation. But generally speaking, you're in damage limitation mode at that point. And it becomes, it takes a lot of hard work, it takes a lot of commitment in order to repair that. And the reason why your children are in that situation, it boils down to one thing: there is an absence of a relationship, a good relationship between the parent and the child. And because that relationship is non-existent, it's been filled, that void has been filled by what peers and other people around them were influencing them and their judgment. And they're taking advice and guidance from those people and not from you. And what ends up happening is this war starts taking place between your child and you, almost like you're at two opposite camps. Now, the first thing and the hardest thing to do, actually the easiest thing to do, it's not difficult, is to rebuild the relationship. What's hard is it takes time, it takes commitment. And this is where parents a lot of the times fail, because throughout the whole life they've done a certain way of working. Now we're telling them, look, focus on the relationship. Because I always say this is a principle that runs across parenting, from child to adult. It's always, this is the key gem that I would drop, which is connection always comes before correction. You need to have the connection with your child. Because a lot of the time we're looking at the question coming, okay, my child doesn't listen to me. We're talking about discipline, we're talking about managing behavior, we're talking about all of those things, which is the correction element. But to be honest, for us to be able to effectively correct our child, for us to be able to effectively guide them, we need to have a relationship. When the relationship is non-existent, nothing's going to happen. And I always say this: look at it as an adult relationship. If a husband and wife have a fractured relationship, will they listen to each other? They don't. Whatever they say will just rub them up the wrong way, with confrontation and conflict. That's all that happens. Or even another individual, could be a work colleague. Imagine you have no decent relationship with your work colleague, and no matter what they say will always be viewed, oh, they don't like me, they hate me, they're out to get me. Suspicion and hatred and anger. It's a similar thing with our children, especially when they're into their teens, especially when they're getting older. We need to treat them like or similar to young adults. So therefore, we have to look at that relationship that, okay, if my relationship is non-existent, I need to focus on building the relationship. Because once I build the relationship, then builds trust. Then when I start talking and giving advice and guidance, it will hold more weight. And this is the hardest thing I found. Numerous parents, when I've spoken to, I said, you need to focus on the relationship. But they try and they fail, they come back and they try and they fail. Because why? It's a hard work for the parent to change themselves. But that is the only solution at that point for you to be able to limit the damage that's already been done and to rectify it. If you can rebuild that connection and relationship, then there is always hope. So I'm not being doom and gloom. There is always hope, but it takes effort. And the key starting point is building the relationship.
And usually, how many sort of sessions do you see on an average the families require? I mean, it sounds like this is a very long-winded process. It sounds like the years of damage don't simply go away by a session or two. I mean, what is sort of the average amount of sessions that a family does require?
The average is around about 10 sessions, up to 10 sessions. Okay. Now, in that time, the key thing that's required is work to be done between sessions. Now, if work isn't done between sessions, then you could do 100 and nothing would change.
Yeah.
So it's really important, because all we can do is give you the advice and guidance and support, and you then have to action it, because you're the only one who can make the change. And if you don't make the positive steps, then the next session will just go back to zero again. We're going to keep on doing that loop. And I'm sure you'll be aware, and those who understand about, for example, cognitive behavioral therapy, a lot of it is related to that, which is you have to basically be the change yourself. You have to make the positive steps. Otherwise, if you have sessions and you're not doing things yourself, progress won't be made. So, in and around average, I would say within 10 sessions is sufficient if you're making changes, if you're actually acting upon it, and then you'll be left to it, because the main thing is you need the guidance to know what to do, and then it's in your own hands, because you know your children better than I do. But what I do, what I'm here is I'm here just to help and guide you to see where you could possibly improve and make a better impact.
No, definitely. Nur, we're left with the last 60 seconds. Very quickly, in the end, do you have a message for anyone out there who's actually looking for help?
Well, I always say this, if you're looking for help, that is the first step. That means you've acknowledged and you know that, look, I'm in a difficult position. And there's no shame in looking for help, because that's the way, that's the way we can make change. So seeking help, don't feel ashamed. By all means, reach out. We're always there providing non-judgmental advice, guidance, and support. And feel free, get in touch. Involvefathers.com is the easiest way to get in touch with me. And we can book time and sessions in, and we can work through, inshallah, your problems and help you resolve.
Nur, thank you so much for taking out your precious time today and coming on our show and enlightening us. Thank you so much. It was an absolute pleasure to have you on. So viewers, today we talked about how important the father of a role is in the upbringing of their children. Our next topic is equally interesting. If you want to know what our next topic is, you'll have to stay with us. It's time for a break.
Solve Thirst first by visiting pennyappeal.org. This program is brought to you in association with Penny Appeal.
Welcome back to Let's Talk. I'm Dr. Anita Raja, and before we went on to the break, we promised you a very interesting topic after the break. So today, in our second segment of our show, we're going to discuss entrepreneurship. Now, everyone dreams to make it big. Everyone wants to be a millionaire, but many of us are unable to get off that conveyor belt lifestyle, and we are not able to dare to dream. We're not able to chase our dreams because we worry that we are going to fail. Now, it was quite interesting because when I was preparing for my show today, I looked up what the term entrepreneur actually meant. And it was quite interesting to read that an entrepreneur is someone who is happy to take risk and who is happy to face the consequences of starting something new, something different. Today on our show, we're going to talk about this. If you want to be part of it, our number is on your screen, 019-2423-1083. Our WhatsApp number is 075-858-35150. Welcome to our show, Mohammed Ibrahim, who is the CEO of the Clinic Room. Mohammed, thank you so much for taking out time and speaking to us. I totally appreciate that you're super busy, and I had to chase you for weeks on end so that you'd come on our show finally. How are you today?
I'm very well, thank you, Anita. How are you?
I'm well.
And thank you for such a lovely introduction.
It is the honest truth. So, Mohammed, first of all, I want you to tell our viewers about your background before the Clinic Room was born. Tell us about where you're from, where how you started off as, and then we'll ask you about your journey.
Okay, perfect. So my name is Ibrahim. I'm the CEO of the Clinic Room at the moment. Prior to this, I was running a influencer marketing agency with probably the early merge of 2014 when it first sort of took off. So Anita, you're probably familiar with influencer marketing that took off on social media, especially Instagram. Since then, from 2014 to 2016, we actually ran that. And at 2016, we decided to sort of turn it off only because the market was getting very saturated. So my background pretty much was always in entrepreneurship, because prior to that and during that period, we also started multiple other businesses, from e-commerce to supermarkets as well as food sort of outlets, and all of them didn't really go so well for us, but more so as a typical entrepreneur, that was nothing more than a learning curve. And since then to now, we've obviously launched the Clinic Room, which launched in 2018, and you know very well how the Clinic Room has been running since then. It's on track for about £2 million as of this year. And hopefully, the next 5 years to come, we're going to try and be in multiple cities. At the moment, we're in Leicester, Peterborough, as well as Birmingham. We've got eyes on Manchester, London for the next year. But yeah, that's pretty much my background.
And Mohammed, I'd like you to tell our viewers how you started off the clinic room, because it was just a room that you were renting initially, and you started off with a couple of machines in that room. Now, how did you actually take that risk, and how much money did you need to invest initially? I ask you this very personal, intimate question because there's so many people out there who really want to start something new but are worried about the financial implications and perhaps think, well, we've got a family, we need to pay the bills, let's not take the risk. So how did you start off the clinic room?
So to make a long story very short, with all the failures in the past businesses, I was actually in a lot of debt at the time. So top of my head, it was anything between 100 and 120,000 pounds in credit card debt. However, I had one card that was still sitting there, which was an American Express. This is a card I actually didn't use at the time. I thought if everything was to fail, this is one card I'm going to use to start the next business. Essentially what happened was I met Rahima, which is my business partner as well as my wife, and we started off the clinic room off that one credit card as a part-time business, not actually for me, but for her. The clinic, the reason it was called the clinic room essentially was because it was actually in a room, and it was never supposed to be bigger than that. The idea was to sort of do weekends. Rahima was supposed to run Saturdays and Sundays whilst working at the NHS, and the business was supposed to stay at that size. At no stage did we plan to grow it. At no stage was this part of my personal entrepreneurial journey. It was actually more so for Rahima because this was her background and nothing to do with sort of what I've had previously done. Nevertheless, when we did take off with the clinic room, what tended to happen was I started getting involved on the customer service side of things, and listening to people and their problems strangely became a bit of a passion. Rahima, who was brilliant at what she was doing, and from literally day one, the first initial weekends that she worked, the 2, 3, or 4 clients that we had, week on week, it just began to double. 4 became 8, 8 became 16, 16 became 32, and so on and so forth. Since then, we've never really looked back. She quit her NHS job. I was pretty much unemployed as a standard entrepreneur anyway, so we both took on the business full time, and it's been 3 years now from 2018. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So in terms of money and the machine, with the personal question that you're asking, I had 100,000 on the last credit card, of which we spent 65,000 on 2 machines at the time, which didn't really do us so well. Straight after that, any money that we did make all got invested back into the clinic, and any profit or any revenue that we had made, we didn't actually put it into marketing. A lot of our growth came from Instagram, so social media, what it is. It allowed us to sort of grow at the time. Today, I understand it's much more difficult to sort of grow on Instagram because of the algorithm and the way it's been changing over time. But 3 years ago, it was a little bit more easier. And all in all, if I have to be completely honest, at the time when we used that last credit card, it was never a thing of, oh, this might fail, how are we going to pay these debts? Because it was never about the money at the time. It was about try something part-time. If it works, wonderful. If it doesn't, no problem. Right? We can sort of move on and we pay it one way or the other. So that's pretty much what happened. That's the amount of money that was spent. But since then, obviously, we've grown immensely. These debts are paid off. So there's nobody knocking on the door anymore. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
And you see, Rahima, your wife, who's also your business partner, pretty much runs the show, is a qualified nurse. And she left the NHS and worked for the NHS to become your full-time business partner. I mean, initially, there are many people out there who are in the healthcare profession, but worry about leaving their profession because there's so many years of training behind it, there's an education behind it, and they worry that, they've invested so much of their lives in it that they're now unable to break free. How did you actually convince her to leave her nursing profession behind?
Okay, so in all honesty, there was no convincing happening at the time from either me or her. It was actually the drive of the business itself. So the momentum it grew at was literally ridiculous. And the only way I can put it is just imagine one weekend you came in and you've seen 3 people. The next weekend it doubled, and then it was a domino effect, and it kept on doubling to the point where she had to take off days off the NHS to finally work a Friday, then a Thursday, then a Wednesday. And before you knew it, she couldn't actually go back into the NHS. Now, it's never a good thing to obviously skip another job to sort of work on your own business. So the decision sort of happened automatically where she had to leave the NHS at the time and start full time. The commitment required to sort of produce certain results in a aesthetics company it's quite a lot, to be honest. So anyone that plans to do it part time, and tries to be successful is very difficult. Initially, the reason we began it part-time was because it was never supposed to be an actual business. It was supposed to be something part-time for her to do on the weekend, and in the event where she ever decided she doesn't want to really work for the NHS anymore and she just wants something to do on the weekends or any other day of her choice, she could actually do that. So there was really no convincing happening from me. The customers drove her to sort of quit her job and continue the clinic room.
I mean, Rahima is absolutely fantastic. I wish I could interview her. I am still keeping my hopes high that I will interview her one day. Mohammed, you said that, when you started the business, you were already under a lot of debt. And that alone for some people puts them off, because they're like, well, actually, I'm already £100,000 under. Do I really want to take this risk? I mean, if the clinic room would not have set up the way it has, mashallah, and we really pray and hope that it gets better and better for you, how were you planning to repay the debts?
That's a good question. You see, it's not something you actually think about at the time. I've never thought about debt as a bad thing, because we're in a country at the moment, which is the United Kingdom, which allows us to sort of, take such leaps without any devastating consequences. That's the bottom line truth. So from an entrepreneurial mindset, it's like, I've got much worse things to worry about than to pay off this debt. There's always something that you can do to either pay it off or to write it off at the time. Now, again, that wasn't something as a backup plan that was set up, because never have I been bankrupt, and that was never the plan either. But in the event where it did, I know I'm in an economy where, certain things can be taken on board, where I could either manage my debt with very small amounts of payments or completely write it off. Now, that wasn't in my plan at the time, because our mindset was never like, we're going to fail. That's not why we invested the money. Anytime anyone, especially me or ourselves, me and Rahima, decide to invest into something, it's we're all in. You can't have a backup plan thinking, if this fails, what do I do? Because in the event where you do such a thing, all you're doing is setting yourself up to fail, literally based on the fact that you are not going, with all your confidence. You're going in with 1 foot there and 1 foot where you currently are, and that is something that will pull you back. So, again, when you ask me what were we going to do about the debt if we couldn't pay off, again, honestly, I don't really have an answer for that, because we would have just sort of dealt with it as it came. Similar to what we did prior with all the other credit card debts, we were already under about 100,000, 120,000. That money was being paid off slowly, and then another 100,000 would probably have been added to the kitty.
No, I mean, Mohammed, you certainly are a risk taker. You were born to be an entrepreneur. Definitely, by looking at your confidence and the way you left everything in God's hands and fate. I mean, you did really well for yourself, because now you are even planning to expand it to other countries. You're planning to take the clinic room abroad, and you're actively working on that project now. In terms of, we were about to go on our break, so we're left with 60 seconds before we go on to our break. But very, very briefly, I'd like to ask you this question before we go on to the break. For anyone who's actually planning to start a new business, is in debt, what advice do you have?
If you're looking to start a business, needs to first of all be true to themselves. So you can't just start a business because everybody else is starting a business. The bottom line truth is, if you're wired to be a doctor, that's what you should actually do, because your passion lays in there. So the number one thing is, if you think, shall I start a business for whatever reason, and you're not true to yourself, that business probably won't take off, because you're not going to be all in. But in the event where you do feel that, business is my thing and it's always been my thing, then 100% close your eyes, trust God, trust yourself, and go all in with everything you have. And it's not always monetary, it's generally just passion.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think that's excellent advice, Mohammed. We're going to continue our conversation with you, viewers. If you want to be part of the show, ask Mohammed any question. You have our number on your screens, our WhatsApp number on your screens. But it is time for a break. Stay with us.
Solve Thirst first by visiting pennyappeal.org. This programme is brought to you in association with Penny Appeal.
Welcome back to Let's Talk. Before we went on to our break, we were talking about entrepreneurship. I mean, who else doesn't want to be young and rich? And is it that difficult to become rich? And if you have an idea, which is amazing, but you're worried about executing it, is there really a big risk in executing it, especially in a country like the United Kingdom, where you are given lots and lots of loans, credit cards, and you can actually dare to dream? To discuss this and much more, we were speaking to Mohammed Ibrahim, who is the CEO of the Clinic Room, and he was giving us his life advice, because this is exactly what he's done. He's still in his 20s. And he's doing well, really, really well for himself. So, Mohammed, I was going to ask you that, you came up with the idea of opening the Clinic Room, for instance, and this is more aesthetic related, and you do all sorts of treatments. But then you've got this, you're not medical, your wife is, who is your business partner, but you have this brainchild, because you come up with lots and lots of different formulas. I mean, you were selling this amazing formula, which was made by yourself. I mean, you and your wife actually formulated it, a formula which was for, dark circles under the eyes. And then, you come up with these things, these new products, which you actually create as well. How do you do that?
Ultimately, you've got to have a passion in anything you create. So generally, even though the clinical aspect isn't my background and it's not my passion, solving problems is, and to be a great entrepreneur in general, you need to be able to solve these problems. So whether it's for dark circles, what you're sort of speaking about right now, it's a protocol that we've created, which is called the Miracle Eye Program. It's the only treatment plan that probably exists on the planet today that can solve under eyes, and there's proof of that are obviously on our portfolio on Instagram and Facebook and stuff like that. And the way these sort of come about is by having a personal sort of attachment to it, or embarking upon a problem that you sort of face yourself. My own background, which I've actually never discussed anywhere before, not on Instagram, not on my own, not in the clinic. I actually had really bad under eye problems myself my whole life. And in going to solve that, we sort of embarked upon multiple different treatments, probably over 50, of which we narrowed down to about 10, as of last month, 11 actually. And using these treatments bespoke to an individual based on what we see, we've managed to create multiple different protocols that help sort of rejuvenate people's under eyes. Okay, so not with just that alone, with multiple different things that we sort of do and anything that sort of comes across our way, in trying to solve it, you need to have a personal attachment or a personal problem. And only when you can solve it for yourself is then when you can solve it for other people. That allows you to then go forward and monetize it, which then eventually becomes a business.
But then the thing is, you've done so well that, mashallah, so that from 2018 up until now, you're now, thinking about franchises, and you're thinking about, involving more people and expanding your business. How did you come up with that idea alone as well? I mean, it's just excellent, isn't it? How do you come up with all these ideas? How can someone actually direct their brain in the right direction, the right path to think like you do?
Okay, essentially, you do need alone time. If you ask me for absolute specifics, my alone time is literally from midnight till 3 a.m. Now, I don't recommend that to everybody because that's really bad for your dark circles and general health. But personally, I have a sleeping issue, which I've always had, and I find that between 12 and 3 a.m. is my time. I'm not an early bird. I never have been. I don't require 7 or 8 hours of sleep. I can quite nicely sleep at 3 a.m., wake up at 8 o'clock every single day, and feel absolutely healthy. Now, any individual looking to come up with creative ideas, you genuinely need to do two things. One is travel. So it doesn't necessarily mean travel in different countries. It can be different parts of the UK that will allow you to sort of open up your brain from where you are at the moment. The problem we have is we're really confined to our cities and more so our towns. Exactly where we are, we sort of remain for most of our life. And any holidays that we go on, we actually go on just to make it a vacation. However, if you go to different countries or different parts of the UK, what you need to actually do is open your eyes up to different things, the way their cultures are. That allows you to then bring it back to your own business or to your own town and lets you develop ideas which eventually you can monetize and make into a business. So for very specific reasons, you need to spend time on your own as well as travel. Spending time on your own typically for a lot of people is early mornings. Most entrepreneurs like Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, they morning guys. They literally, probably, if you've read their biography, they're up for 4 a.m. between 4 and 5. They're some planning 5 and 6 at the gym, and probably by 7 o'clock they're in, their offices. In my case, it's actually backwards, so I probably do it completely wrong, but it's just what works for me. For others, it doesn't have to be morning or night. It could literally be any time of the day. You really need to take out at least 30 to 60 minutes a day for yourself to then come up with certain ideas. And you can't go looking. It just comes to you. And it only comes to you, again, relating to what I said previously, it needs to be relatable. It needs to be a problem you've embarked upon to then find that thousands or even millions of other people are having exactly the same problem.
No, definitely. And I guess you're absolutely right. I think the thing that does give us is a setback in our lives, unfortunately, in today's time and age. In this time and age when life is just so difficult, you've got the bills to pay, you've got so much to worry about, you don't really have that me time where you can sit and actually come up with an idea, or you can sort of nurture your creativity, because unfortunately you're just sucked into the system. You've got a mortgage to pay, you need your bills to be paid, you've got your kids, and that sort of becomes a mundane lifestyle, because that is just easier. It's just the easier way out. It's convenient to just live that life and not dare to dream bigger, because it's just so comfortable and so easy. But when it comes to you, I've seen that you certainly have dared to dream big. You came up, you kept trying and trying despite numerous failures, and you didn't give up. In terms of giving up, what sort of message do you have for people out there who are in a similar position like you, have had numerous failures, and now are towards the end of their tether?
So this answer has to be for two types of people. One, the entrepreneurs, and the ones that are the entrepreneurs quite naturally, they will know exactly who they are. With that being said, if you find that you're consistently failing, you've got to sort of take that from a loss to actually a learning curve, because for you to achieve anything great, ultimately you have to have multiple failures. Every single failure just sets you up for the next challenge, and the next challenge eventually becomes your business that will sort of make everything happen for you. The guys or the girls who feel like they failed after one business, that's necessarily not your path anyway. Like, I tried football. It didn't work for me. It doesn't mean, I'm going to be sad about it. I couldn't be a football player. That's just bottom line. I've tried art. That didn't work for me. I've tried music. It didn't work for me. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean music was my thing and I couldn't make it in that. Ultimately, the failures sort of took me to one place, which was entrepreneurship. So the number one thing to understand, first, find your true self. In the event where you're trying to be somebody else because you've seen it on social media, you've got inspiration from, your boss, and you think, this is how I want to be, you could probably take their personality, but what they do is essentially just them. They were wired to do this. I don't really believe that everybody can be an entrepreneur, not for any other reason, because everybody on earth today has come, with their own characteristics, and to become an entrepreneur, you need to have certain characteristics. Doesn't mean you will be born with it, but you can also build it along the way. I have a lot of friends today who never in their life thought they were going to be entrepreneurs, and they eventually ended up becoming one. Right? And that's literally because of the journey and these failures. So both of them sort of interlink in a way where if the failures set you up to do multiple things, which eventually get you to set up a business, fantastic. But if you fail and you find that, what's going to happen for me now, it just probably means sometimes that this wasn't your thing. Try something you're actually passionate about, something that actually makes you happy, as opposed to trying to be like somebody else, and that will be a better journey for you. There's absolutely nothing wrong with being the best teacher in the world. There's nothing wrong with being the best musician in the world. But trying to be something else just won't work, because ultimately your personal self won't even believe in what you're doing. And the longevity of that won't really last very long. You probably do it 1 year, 2 years, and eventually you're going to sort of fall through the cracks.
But Mohammed, when it comes to South Asians, I mean, you are South Asian, I'm South Asian. Within our community, there's not much of a push to become an entrepreneur. And in fact, if you talk about a new idea, if you talk about setting up a new business or anything, your parents, if anything, will tell you to stick to what you have been trained to become and stick to your line and not take any risks. I mean, how can we combat that aspect?
Oh my God, Anita, you've touched my heart. This is what I've personally faced my whole life, because from a, as you say, South Asian background, we are really not pushed towards entrepreneurship. And we are pushed to be doctors and engineers, as we sort of all know it and we can all sort of relate to. Essentially, I had this from the bottom up, and in my case specifically, I've got 6 sisters and then it's me. So being in the South Asian family, they thought this is going to be the guy or the son that's going to sort of make us all proud. He's going to go to college and he's going to go to uni, and from there he's going to be a doctor, or I don't know what they had in mind. As I sort of left school is only when I realized that I can't do any of this. But I'm a very direct sort of speaker, and I said to my family at the time, I can't do college, it's not for me. And it wasn't that I tried once. Every single thing that I do, I tried quite consistently. So I went to about 5 different colleges in Birmingham, and leaving each one early. I didn't complete the term because I found that I can't do this. I jumped from subject to subject to eventually find that this isn't for me, and I've sort of let go of it. The South Asian community will not push you, that they just won't. And they don't mean harm, genuinely. Like if I speak of my own family, I know they meant best, but they only meant best with the information they had. And the information they had coming into the UK as immigrants was, if you go to college and if you go to uni and you get a degree, fantastic. This is going to be the best thing for you. But since they came to where we are today, a degree doesn't mean too much today. I got the most respect for people that have degrees and have become doctors and nurses and lawyers and teachers, genuinely. But in today's day and age, in the internet world that we live in, there's really no need for you to have a degree to sort of prove whether you're going to be successful or not. To be things like a doctor, to be things like a scientist, a solicitor, lawyer, 100% you need a degree, because you need to go through a series of learning for you to then implement into something that the country has put in place, being law or the way doctors sort of work. But to be anything else in the world, you literally just need you on your phone today. So essentially, our parents or everybody else are not wrong. They need to be right. But it's just for information they have.
Right. I agree. I totally agree with this. Mohammed, thank you so much for taking out your precious time and coming on our show today. I could have spoken to you for hours on end. It was such an interesting conversation. I hope you have an amazing week. Viewers, I hope that you enjoyed the topics today. We would like to catch you again next week. Have a lovely week. Take care of yourselves. Allah Hafiz.